So, um, my name's Brian. I'm a college student, 21, Korean. Korean American. But with saying all these things, I still often ask myself, who am I? Let's start from the beginning. And by that, I mean my parents. My parents were born and raised in Korea. Being born only 2 decades after the ceasefire of the Korean War, they grew up during a time that the country was exiting an era of social and economic poverty and entering essentially a mini industrial revolution. Oh, and might I add that thank God to there being hope that the Korean War might officially be over. My dad came to the States in '86, while my mom soon followed after once getting married in '94. The important thing here is that when they immigrated to the States, they brought the entire heart of Korea with them. And then there's me. I was born and raised in the greater Seattle area my entire life. Just like Macklemore's song The Town says, my spirit bleeds the skylines of Seattle. I grew up playing Little League, copying Ichiro's famous batting routine. I cried when the Boys in Stripes stole the Super Bowl from us in '05, and cried again when the Seattle Seahawks finally hoisted up the Lombardi Trophy in '14. The Seattle American identity is a huge part that's rooted in my soul. Honestly, I'm just a normal Seattleite. I'm a regular Asian American kid that puts a lot of personal investment into sneakers and streetwear. Not trying to brag or anything, this might be a shameful thing to say at the same time, but my closet's probably worth around 4 to 6 grand. Is that a lot? Is that even normal? Anyways, back to the point. This is where things really get interesting. Because I was born here, I assumed I was American, but that wasn't the case because I didn't look like anyone outside of my family. But I also knew I was Korean because of them. One result of this is that I was disciplined into carrying Korean tradition and culture, but with the burden of inheriting an additional American identity. My home was filled with the smell of fermented food, and I loved every moment of it. I bow every time I see the older generation. Speaking Konglish is my thing. And of course, education is always the forefront of focus in the household. I, like many other second-generation Koreans in the United States, live in a great dichotomy of being Korean and American. And because of this, it's caused a lot of discourse and tension throughout my entire life. On one hand, I'm not Korean enough because I don't speak fluent Korean, and I don't get all the traditional customs. But on the other hand, I'm not American enough only because I don't look the part when in reality, the US is all I've ever called home my entire life. Let's add in another element, which will be the focus of my question. How does this identity get handled by, let's say, the Korean American church? Based on my experience, the church in general has become a fundamental aspect of who I am. I love the idea that a community can come together to break bread, have fellowship, and build each other up. And I love serving the next generation. Helping the youth get through life in general is something I love partaking in. The thing is, the Korean church is a little different with how they handle their own people. For the first generation, like my mom and dad, they used it as a place to essentially just survive. They used it to find a place where they could actually communicate and understand people. Essentially, it acted as a place to preserve Korean tradition and culture. For me, I can understand anyone and everyone in the States. Or at least I thought I did. Because I carry a dual identity of living as a Korean and an American, I carry that much more burden. I don't fit into the first generation ideal because I can't speak the language well. But I also don't fit in with Americans because I just don't look the part. Like, I remember bringing kimchi to school one day and everyone around me scooted away because they thought I brought something rotten. Because of that, I remember crying to my mom, begging her to only make me sandwiches and buy me Lunchables. What am I more of? I didn't take this tension very well in the end. And the church. Although it tried, it didn't help facilitate this gray area that I live in. They wouldn't try and understand what I actually lived through, and they would just try to assimilate me to be more Korean when I literally can't because I carry another American identity. So what's the solution? And why am I even telling you this in the first place? Well, I want real stories to be heard. My experience is genuine and grounded, and I'm sure that many other Korean Americans around my age can relate. I want this to be a testament that as the Korean church is a hub for people to gather, divisions are still felt within our own people, and we all need to work collectively to bridge these gaps, whether we come from a first-gen mindset or a second-gen mindset. My name is Brian Lee, and this is my story.